Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of RachReflects. This week we have the privilege of speaking to Su Shan. Hi Sush.
Hi Rach.
And Sush is someone that I've had the privilege of learning directly from.
I learned from Rachel too, so don't let her fool you.
No, but I mean, I get to watch her live her life as a leader, as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a peer in her industry as well. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Sush, to share with us your journey, wisdom, and insights. Su Shan has an impressive career spanning in the financial sector, and she has held influential positions and is a prominent figure in the industry. Right now, as the group head of institutional banking at DBS Bank, Southeast Asia's largest bank, she has led strategic initiatives and played a pivotal role in the organization that has also had many successful transformations. So, welcome, Su Shan.
Thank you, Rach. I learned as much from you.
No, not at all. I don't know how much I learned from you. But I want to also have you share with us, especially for those of us, who are just getting to know you. Could you introduce a little bit about yourself and the journey that has gotten you to where you are professionally today?
Okay, so I'm Su Shan. I'm a Singaporean and a career banker. Although along the way, I've had a few different iterations. I lived in different countries. I've worked in London, I've worked in Tokyo, I've worked in Hong Kong. I've been based in Singapore for quite a while, but I see my job as a global job. So it's been really exciting. But although I've been in the same industry for many years, decades actually, it feels like I have been in different industries every few years.
Yeah.
And ever so often, I've had to take steps back to take one step forward. Sometimes, in life, it's life, right, Rach? Life is not a straight line. Sometimes in life,
linear,
life is not linear. Sometimes in order to take two steps forward, you have to take one step back to kind of reassess. And the financial industry's changed so much from the time that I started in 1990 till today. In 1990 was all physical. I was in the securities business. It was all face-to-face, phone-to-phone. Today, there's hardly, it's all digital today. And markets have moved to a much faster speed. And along the way, just learning new things. I think it's the learning that keeps everything fresh. At the crux of all this is really working with a company that has a great culture. A great culture. Culture, as Peter Druckenmiller very famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast and lunch and dinner, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, in a business, always work with a company that has a great culture. As a business leader yourself, Rach, you've built a great culture at Love Bonito, having that center of excellence, that sort of true North Star, where you empower people, you create livelihoods, you create wealth, you enable lives and enables people's careers as well along the way. And of course, you give your customers what they want and a joyful experience. That's all very important in creating a great culture.
Yeah. And one thing that I know of you, Su Shan, is that you are someone who really lives and breathes having the growth mindset. I know you, even at the position that you're at today, you still go to the level where your team is at, you sit with them and you learn from them. You were telling me you were just sitting with your engineers and asking them to teach you everything that, they are doing and what they're working on as well.
So I learn best by doing, Rach. I think you do too. And I think everyone has to be aware of their own propensity and how they learn. Like my kids learn better by listening. I learn by doing.
Yes.
So knowing what my learning proclivity and style is, I find it easier to learn by doing. And a lot of things today, we're always trying out new stuff, right? Whether you're trying out a new product, a new user experience, whether you're trying generative AI, whether you're trying the blockchain, whatever you're trying, it's all new. And so making experiments and being part of that whole experimental journey means you learn by doing. And you're in there with your team. And if it fails, well, you were part of the failure. If it succeeds, well, you're part of the success.
Yeah.
But I think nothing beats the whole learning experience of learning by doing and not being scared to do, right? And not being scared to make mistakes. I think some leaders feel like I'm the boss, I can't show myself to be wrong or to make mistakes or be vulnerable. But actually, heck, today's real life, even if you're the boss, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to own your mistakes. I think, bosses need to be humble and learn from their juniors. I learn from my juniors all the time. I'm blessed to have very good teams, a very young, smart team who teach me every day.
Awesome. And so is there like a leadership philosophy that you live by?
The one non-negotiable thing is values, right? For me, that's just not negotiable. So having your true north, having integrity, that's the baseline, right? And as leaders, you have to make sure that there's no tolerance of nothing short of that. And then also make sure that it's okay to get things wrong. Make sure you set a culture where people will get things wrong, but they surface it quick.
Yeah.
And you can deal with it quickly. And having a culture that doesn't always apportion blame or hiding things. I think being just open and taking responsibility, taking accountability, being humble, knowing what you don't know. I think a lot of times we know what we know, and we kind of, that's our safety crutch. But in a time where things are changing so quickly, it's okay to say, hey, heck, I don't know, right? But I need to know. I know what I don't know. I need to know. Or I find people who know to teach me. Or I find people in the team that bring in different perspectives to help to see things you don't see. So I think a deep self-awareness is important, because if you know what your personal bias is, your own proclivity, your own ability, then you surround yourselves with people who are very different from you. Maybe even people you may not necessarily get along with because you don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But because they bring something so different to the table, you should pay attention to what they say. Right?
I really love that, Su Shan. And and on the part where you talked about cultivating deep self-awareness, how do you do that? Especially because as a leader, right, sometimes maybe the teams, they struggle to give us honest feedback also about some of our blind spots or things like that. So what are some of the ways that you cultivate deep self-awareness?
Make it okay for your team to tell you where you might have missed something or they don't agree with you. Actually, interestingly enough, at DBS, we have formalized the process. We call it the raccoon, which is WRECK, something like a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
But instead of a raccoon, it's a raccoon.
Okay.
So if like one of my juniors says, oh, I'm going to disagree with the boss and I'm going to wreck her idea, then he or she will say, hey, can I have a raccoon moment? I'm going to wreck your idea because I think it's crazy, I think it's bad. And so that gives them that safety, that psychological safety to say, I don't agree, I don't think it's a good idea, and to speak up. In fact, we insist on people speaking up if they don't agree.
Yeah.
Because if they don't agree, and then later on we make the mistake and we say,
I
was going to tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you didn't speak up when you should have, right? So I think we want to make it okay. We want to make it imperative that you do speak up when you don't agree.
And then also then as a leader, when you receive that raccoon, right?
Yeah.
It's also like
You
how
can't-
you
you can't-
respond,
yes.
right? Yeah.
You can't say, what the heck, I'm the boss, do it my way.
Yeah.
No,
You
you
have
have to pay attention and making that part of your process as a leader and making it okay for your younger colleagues to speak up. I think it's important. I like to think that I do listen. And I like to learn. I think that's just a natural curiosity in me to learn. I love to learn. I think it's a gift that, at work we are paid to learn. We're paid to experiment. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps life interesting, right?
Yeah. I was just speaking to this leadership coach from the US, and then she has personally also coached top leadership in the US, like Facebook, and basically a Fortune 500 leaders. And I was asking her, is there one characteristic that you see common amongst the top leaders in America or just basically in the world? And she said, yes, they all have a spirit of curiosity.
Oh, really?
That's amazing. And that's what you just talked about. I mean, moving on, I also want to ask you, Su, what are some of the personal routines or habits that you have cultivated over the years that have also helped to contribute to your productivity and success?
I have good days. I also have bad days. So I don't want to make it all sound great, because it's not always great. But I'll tell you what, I insist on having good night's sleep.
It's a non-negotiable
It's not
for
negotiable.
you. Yeah, I love it.
I need my beauty sleep. right?
Yeah.
And in fact,
But that's also deep self-awareness, right?
Ariana Huffington, I don't know whether
Yes.
you've read. I mean, she has this thing that she says, sleep your way to the top, which I love because it really is physically sleeping, just having your, whatever hours you need, whether it's 6 or 7
Yeah.
or 8, whatever it is, you're self-aware. And then when you wake up and you had a good night's sleep, you're ready to conquer the world. When you've had a bad night's sleep, you feel like crap the whole day, right? And then your team suffers, right? So
For sure.
that's the baseline for me is adequate sleep. The second is to have physical activity. So if I don't have physical activity, I get very grouchy, Rach. You
And
don't
like
want
what,
to see me.
daily? Oh.
No, at least sort of 3-4 times a
Okay.
week. So my assistant, she's great. Chris, she knows that if 3 days have passed and I haven't hit the gym, she will make sure
You put
to
it in
squeeze
somewhere. Yeah.
to squeeze in a sneaky hour at the gym. It could be, at lunchtime or in the evening before I go home. I often try to take a run. We're right next to Marina Bay, which is beautiful at night. So that also cleans my mind. Having a nice run through Gardens by the Bay is just the best experience ever. Highly recommended. So I have make time for sleep and I make time for physical activity. Those are my true, not negotiable rituals.
Yeah. And I love that because it's also really understanding what works for us as
Yes.
individuals, right? For you, it
Yes.
may be this too. For someone else, it may be something else. And I think that's also very important to constantly go back to keep us sane.
Yeah.
Recently I was also listening to an interview by Indra Nui, who was Pepsi's
yes.
CEO for 12 years.
Yeah.
She was talking about balance. And she was also saying that women, sometimes we are disadvantaged because the age which we are, having kids, giving birth, raising kids, is also the same age where we are building the peak of our careers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and she also talked about how she struggled with,
Yeah.
balancing that, her kids, her family, her husband. She said sometimes even her husband is not on her list of priorities. But so she,
I think my husband will relate to that.
last year we celebrated you and Chris's 25th wedding anniversary, and I've also met your 2 beautiful kids. They're grown up. They have also a very close relationship to you and Chris. So how do you do it?
So I don't think that I've done it all. I don't think it's possible. The kids are a tribute to my mother, who helped a lot when they were growing up, to Chris, my husband, who was a very hands-on dad, and to themselves. I mean, they were quite independent.
Yeah.
But I think as mothers who want it all, and we all want it all, who doesn't, it's being able to prioritize, okay, this is important. This is kind of important if I can't do it. And this one, just give up.
Yeah.
Right? So they're buckets, right? So the must do, the die must do bits, which
Yeah.
is, okay, key notes, key milestones in their lives. It could be when they grow up, when they graduate, when they have, their crucible moments in school and their personal lives. Be there for them. Then there are those that if you're lucky, you're there. If you're not lucky, then too bad. You've got to let it go. That will be things where the timing you cannot control. Your baby's first steps. You might not be there for it because you're at the office
Yeah.
or you're at a crucial meeting.
Yeah.
It could be that your mom is there, your husband's there, the nanny's there. They film it for you and you go, hi.
Yeah.
And you're not there. You feel a little bit sad. But you know what? You can't control the timing of these things, right? Or when they have a fall, you may not be there. You just have to say, okay, that can't be helped, but I will be there as much in spirit as I am, as I am not physically. I will be there. I'll be on the phone. I'll be on a video, whatever. And then there are those that you say, okay, no time, can't do, and just let go. And don't regret it because
Yeah,
you've
no
already
point.
you just digest that you cannot be there, accept it, and move on, right? And that could be things like sometimes school meetings, sometimes it could be participating in the parent teacher things, which if it's crucial you should go. If it's not, then let it go. Or maybe some of the birthday parties that they want to go to, or maybe some of the sporting events. If there's a lot of sporting events, you can't go to everything because you have to travel. Then there's some things you just have to say, no. But I remember I missed my son's floorball tournaments throughout his entire 2-year or 1-year floorball session. But the very last one, he told me, Mom, this is the very last floorball tournament I'm going to make. So if you want to be there, it's,
This is it.
this Friday at 3 o'clock at this stadium, and, be there if you want to. If not, I understand. And I had to have a meeting just before that. So it was luckily it was just a one-on-one meeting. So I asked the person to go with me, and we had the meeting in the car on the way there, so that I could still be there. Thank God my son's team won that tournament.
You must have been so happy.
I was so happy because I'd
Yeah.
never seen a floorball tournament before. I don't even know what floorball was, but then I was there. But I also kind of, managed to capture the meeting as well before. So it was a bit of a
did both.
compromise,
Yeah.
but you had to have colleagues who are understanding and willing to accept that
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to do it, and I'm sorry, but
Yeah, it takes a village, right?
yes,
At home,
yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, your mom,
Yeah,
Chris, and then
yeah,
at work also
yeah,
understanding
yes,
colleagues to help you
yes.
through.
And great helpers as well, obviously,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
But were there moments, I'm so curious, Sush, where you maybe questioned yourself or doubted yourself, like, is this worth it?
There were, but I think looking at how my kids have turned up, I
Yeah.
think it was okay. But the one thing I say to young moms is trust your instinct. It's very interesting, and I shared this with my kids as well. Sometimes, as a mother, you kind of know instinctively when your child may need you. Trust your instinct, and create that bond with your child so that they call you first, or they call you or your husband first when things go wrong. Always be there for them, right? I was at a very important business meeting when I had an instinct that something was wrong at home. It was a weird instinct. It was sort of, I had this funny instinct that something was wrong at home.
Wow.
So I picked up the phone and I called, my kids were at my mom's, and I called my mom, and all I could hear was crying. And my niece, who was 10, picked it up, who was on the phone, said, Auntie Su Shan, there's like so much blood. I'm
Oh
like,
my.
oh my God, what's going on? And my then 1 or 2-year-old son had thought he was Superman and flew off the table and landed on his mouth and, lost a couple of his teeth. He was crying. And for me, it was just this weird instinct, right? So I think Mother Nature is so powerful to give mothers that sort of natural instinct to be protective of their newborn or their babies. And so I tell a lot of young moms, trust your instinct when, you think something is wrong with your kid or something. Trust your instinct, My daughter and I also have a lovely, bond. It changes as they grow older.
Yeah.
As they get older, you're more like friends. She's someone I spar with a lot. I get a lot of insights around how young people think from her. What do they want?
Exactly.
And digitally, how do they consume? Hope she gets insights from me on how to navigate, work or life. And we share a lot. As she's now a young
beautiful.
woman. I'm an older woman, so we both have shared experiences, right? And I think that's also a great bonding. I think the bonds change as the kids evolve. I think as parents that we can give our kids that is priceless is make them feel safe, know that they have a home safety net they can always go to, that is no conditions, it's unconditional love, and that strong safety net is always there for you. Whenever you need, just call, we will always be there for you. I think that gives that sort of baseline safety that children need, especially when they're growing up. And then after that, let them go find their groove, find what makes them happy, find what makes them,
Come alive.
and
Yeah.
then support it from behind.
I really love that parenting advice. Trust your instincts, especially for moms.
Yeah.
And also, do you have any advice for us, working moms who are also trying to path our own ways and career? Any advice when it comes to marriage and relationships?
Well, I think you cannot it's communicate, right? And make time. I say that, and I'm equally guilty of not making enough time. Husbands need to feel like they're important to you. They're
Yeah.
important in your life, and they play a very big role. So even it's just little messages, that you send to each other. Sometimes in the day you send a little cute WhatsApp
Yeah.
message, right?
Yeah.
It costs you hardly any time.
Yeah.
But it goes a long way, right? Or at least, when you wake up and you say good morning with a hug, or you come back and you have a hug, and you create that instant connection. It's actually quite efficient. It doesn't,
I love it.
it's efficient, but it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And also, to not be scared to ask for help or for opinions. I think bouncing ideas, when I've had a bad day, the first person I call is Chris, or sometimes it's my mom, but the first person I call, or when I've had an argument or something, or whatever, things go wrong, it's always nice to have someone at home that you can kind of share, download with. It feels better, right, at the end of the day. And also if your husband or your spouse knows that, I'm being downloaded upon, I have a role to play.
Yes, you're important.
You're sharing something that's important to you. My husband does not know what goes on in my work, hardly, and that's fine because it just takes too much time to explain. He knows when I've had a good day, he knows when I've had a bad day.
Okay.
He
That's
knows when I
important.
have crucial moments, like, this is an important day, we're meeting, whoever, or we're doing a big presentation. He knows when it's an important day. He knows I'm getting ready for stuff that's important. Sharing those important milestones and having him there. And I have to say DBS is very family friendly, and they include spouses and children for a lot of milestone
Events
things.
too.
And so that kind of brings the family together, so you create lifelong relationships and partnerships, because so much of our time is spent at work and not enough with families. And so when you engender moments for you to bring the family together, to melt it with your workplace, I think that's just magic, right? That doesn't happen enough, I guess, for most of us. And I've seen your podcast with Leo, and I think it shows.
Oh,
great.
you saw?
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sush, but that's such a good reminder.
And he
especially-
cringed when you asked him, he said, I don't know, how do I answer this and not be thrown out into the doghouse?
Oh,
Right?
yes, it's true, yes.
A
But
big thing in a marriage is laughter. And Chris
Yes.
and I laugh a lot together. I think humor just binds my whole family. But it's also so important, right?
I will
Don't
always
underestimate
remember that.
humor.
Because at your 25th wedding anniversary, I asked Su Shan, what is one wedding advice? I asked Su Shan and Chris, and they both actually said the same thing, laughter.
Yes.
So what is your definition of success, and has that evolved over the years?
Yes, it has. I think when you're younger, rising up through the corporate ladder, it's success by title, it's success by financial measurements. And I think as you evolve and you get older, success is measured more by kind of the imprints the imprints on sand, or the impact that you make. Of course, for your shareholders, you have to perform. For your clients, you have to perform. So you have to give them the financial impact that they expect, or that you expect of yourself and your team. But ultimately, it's also about the non-financial impact that you're making to society around you. And if you're changing lives, whether it's small impact, helping your younger staff, or bigger impact where you're helping big businesses, you're creating jobs, etc. I think those are what that purpose that binds you. I think success can be also defined by creating a purposeful organization that leaves positive impact.
And with the world also moving so quickly today, what do you think are some of the key and essential skills and qualities that we need in order to thrive?
So other than curiosity to learn, it's an agility to adapt. The ability to know that things are going to change. When they change, nowadays they change so quick.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to know, because not many people know. But know what you don't know, and as I said, surround yourself with information and people, ask questions, get people who know to help you, and then experiment and learn, right? So curiosity to learn, ability to adapt, and creativity. I think creativity is appreciated in this day and age, but with the advancement of technology, the rise of generative AI, the rise of the blockchain, that sort of importance of human creativity and the fact that humans still crave personal connectivity, and businesses that recognize both, I think, will thrive. One other aspect, I think, is resilience. There's so much noise out there in social media. There's so much instancy of everything,
Yeah.
right? You launch a product, instantly you either succeed or fail. The feedback is instant, and sometimes it can be quite hurtful. Sometimes when you see social media, the whole response loop can get out of whack, negative and positive. Sometimes there's fake news, etc. So I think the ability to build an innate resiliency to all that noise, the digital noise, because if you let it affect you, it can really affect your self-esteem
Yeah.
and your own confidence. So building up that resiliency to say, okay, that's just noise, I'm just going to soldier on, right? That's important. The ability to also sift out what's true to what's just noise, especially now as we move into an era of generative AI. And generative AI can be prone today to hallucinations, which are not truths. The ability to look at that and go, to question it, to be more circumspect, and to not always accept that everything you read is correct and true.
Yeah.
To learn to question, to be resilient, and to move forth even with all this noise around you and all this need for instant fulfillment and all that, just to stay true to yourself. I think that's important today.
How would you advise, especially for those of us listening, how would you advise us to develop resilience?
So I often say to rise above the noise, right? How do you rise above the noise? You could get sucked in by all the negative noise and all the instant, need for response and all that. You could get sucked in and then get into a whirl storm and a maelstrom of negativity. Or you could try and rise above it. You could choose not to instantly respond. Your personality might be to instantly get angry and
React,
respond and
yeah.
react. But if you could take a chill pill, take a minute to breathe, maybe see their perspective. Maybe they were right to be angry. Maybe they had a point. Maybe they didn't have a point. Whatever the situation is, take a step back. Look at the situation as an independent third party, not involved. Maybe have a little, kitchen cabinet of independent, your own personal board of independent directors,
Yes.
whom you trust to tell you the unvarnished truth. Su Shan, in this case, you are wrong, okay? Eat humble pie. Or Rach, maybe you didn't see their point of view. They had a point of view when they criticized you. Maybe, right? Have that independent voice of reason who will tell you the unvarnished truth, even if it's hurtful to yourself. Then take time to think about your reaction. Then when you're ready, react. I think, we all will have work crises, life crises, family crisis, whatever. When you get into that crisis mode, that negative mode, rise above it, get independent, objective, unvarnished truth from people you trust, then react.
What do you think, Sush, are some of the key challenges that you think the workforce will face in the coming years?
So I think there will be a few key challenges. One is I talked about it, which is the rise of generative AI, and how that could affect many white-collar jobs, a lot of repetitive jobs, a lot of jobs that are done by humans today will be replaced by machines. Why? Because the machines are better and much faster,
Yeah.
and frankly cheaper and therefore more efficient and more effective. So I worry that some of the jobs that are in existence today will disappear, and when they go fast. So I worry about, potentially unemployment of our graduates or our highly skilled young people, because they might be skilled for something that will disappear tomorrow. But that's okay. I mean, when I've been in banking and I have done jobs that don't exist
rode
today.
the waves, yeah.
Right? But the thing is to be able to see the trend coming and have a backup plan.
Yeah.
So that if your current job looks like it could be replaced by a machine, quickly, download your skills future, learn a new skill, adapt and learn. So, so I do worry about jobs changing. But I think, as I said, if we're resilient, we're willing to learn, curiosity to learn, and willing to take a step back sometimes in your career to learn a new skill so that you can take 2 steps forward, do it. So what else do I worry about? I also, I talked about, social media and resiliency. I
Yeah.
worry sometimes that our youth are mentally a little bit more fragile nowadays. And that fragility needs to be addressed both in schools and socially and by parents, and to build that inner resiliency, to let people know it's okay, right? It's okay not to be okay, but recognize it and get help early. I'm glad to see that so many people now are becoming counselors, professional counselors in schools, psychologists, just building that inner resiliency, addressing the fragility, and having those support groups. I think is important. I met some young people in Singapore. They set up a company called Limitless, which I think is an awesome organization, and they are doing that. They're precisely addressing that issue, and there needs to be more people like that to help young people.
And Sush, before we end, is there something else that you want to share or talk about that I missed asking you?
Actually, you did miss asking me anything, Rach, but I would like to flip and ask you some questions, right?
And I thought you were rushing for time.
So, Rach, you're an entrepreneur that, you've gone from nothing to this great, business, empire builder, and yet you're so real. I mean, a lot of women and men see you as someone so relatable. You're like, the girl next door that we can all relate to. You've been incredibly open about your vulnerabilities, when you had your ectopic pregnancy last year. How have you been able to be a business leader in this new economy, navigating a very fast-moving FMCG business and global domination? You just opened a store in New York. You try new things in Hong Kong. Whenever I share something new in tech, you adopt it or not. But we have a good conversation around it. And yet go through all those personal life crises and still remain smiling. What keeps you going? And then to do this on top of everything else that's going on in your life, right? So I want to turn the tables and ask you those questions.
I am so grateful to have a great team in Love Bonito. I definitely didn't build this by my own strength.
Yes.
And I love what you said. That's why for me, one of the key things is to surround myself with people smarter than me in different disciplines and in different areas.
I get that.
And I hire them, as you know, the team, Dion and the likes of them, the leadership team. They're so differently able than me, and they can do things that I never can. And that is why it makes a great team. And I constantly surround myself with people like that through the different stages of the business, to push boundaries together, to grow together.
That's fantastic.
Then secondly, I think is that deep self-awareness, to constantly work on myself, to do the inner work. I really believe in self-mastery, self-leadership. Before I can think of leading other people, I need to first learn to lead myself. I need to manage, lead, master my emotions. What are my strengths, my inclinations, my weaknesses, my triggers? Why do I have all of that? Work through it. And I think then I can be a better leader at home, at work. And I think that's what I spend a lot of time on, be it through, having a life coach or like seeing a therapist to talk through a lot of, to help me untie a lot of knots that I have inside, to give me like a different perspective. Like what you said, right? It's almost like a challenge network, a personal board of directors that I go to, that I make sure I don't sit in an echo chamber where everybody
of yes men,
right? I go to people who have the guts to be honest and tell me, like you said, the unvarnished truth. And I think that's the fastest way that I can learn and grow. And because I really believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. The better you are as a leader, the better
the organization.
Exactly. So that's what I really believe in and spend a lot of time on, which is also why I choose to do this passion project, RachReflects. Because for me, it's also coming out to really share openly about my struggles, my lessons, to hopefully encourage someone out there that, hey, she doesn't have it all and she's learning along the way. And these are maybe a few tips that I can maybe, see if they might be useful for me. And then to also have thought leaders like yourself to be able to generously come and share about your journey to inspire the rest of us. So this is why RachReflects is really a passion project that's so close to my heart. Over the last 2 decades, for me, I believe in empowering women. And last 2 decades was primarily through fashion and the business, Le Bonito.
Yeah.
And the next decade, I'm asking myself, what else can I do?
Yeah.
That's what I hope to be able to continue to.
Yeah, and I see that you are growing the community, you're encouraging their growth as well, and you're evolving with them.
Yeah.
So, well done, Rach.
No, thank you,
And,
Sush. But
thank you
before
for
that, I want to
having me.
ask you a last question.
Yes.
What is one advice that you have for us women that are also on our journeys of, reaching whatever success means to us and also pushing boundaries and living our fullest potential?
So, stay true to yourself, but build that inner resilience, build that inner strength, and learn, unlearn, relearn.
Yeah.
Just keep going, and also know that sometimes when life throws you a lemon, take that step back, and whilst you're making lemonade and learning how to make lemonade, draw support and resilience from people around you who can be that voice of inner strength, and then go forth and conquer.
Wow. And what you said reminded me of this quote. They said that the illiterate of the 21st century is not someone who can't read or write, but it's someone who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Thank you for the reminder. Thank you so much again, Su Shan, for being here and for sharing so generously with us. Please let us know what are some of your key takeaways that you have from this episode. And of course, Sush, where can we follow you on your journey? You're not so active on social media. But
I'm not active on social media, you're right. But I do have a pretty active LinkedIn
Oh,
profile.
yes, that's right.
It's a little bit work-centric, but I try to sometimes put in stuff that I'm doing, whether it's, in philanthropy or in fun stuff. Not a lot of fun stuff, I have to say, but a lot more work stuff. But I will try and interspace it with more fun stuff going forward.
And so it's Tan Su Shan on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Su Shan. Thank you to all of you for tuning in.
Thank
See you.
you.